So we've been talking about owning land, the whole process of buying it, and maybe even making a cash flow in the crazy dream of owning recreational land. But so now I'm curious, in your experience, Lucas, like, what do you think are the three most important things you should do after you buy a piece? Like, let's look at it from two different perspectives. I'm a end user. Yeah. I'm a deer hunter. I've got my 40 or my 80 now or whatever it is. What should I do to it to make it better? And don't get into the investor side, because we're going to come back to that, because I want to know, like, let's just start with the deer hunter. I've just bought this piece of land. I'm going to keep it for the rest of my life, quote unquote.
Yeah.
What do I do?
So you bought the dream. You're all excited. Where do I start now?
Yeah.
And I think you just go back to like the deer gospel, and it's food, water, bedding, and doing it strategically. So you're not just going out and you're hinge cutting the whole timber. You're doing like that. You're going to sit down with a map. You're going to say, all right, food here is centrally located. I can wrap around and all that, but food is number one.
Yeah.
You can go in there and you can instantly change that farm pretty quick. Going back to another client testimonial, it was a year ago, CRP farm primarily. There's a little bit of like hunt plots around it, but no major food source to hold the deer there throughout a lot of the extra months. And so I was recommended, pull 5 acres out of CRP. It's good income, but it's going to be more beneficial as a hunter, which they're big hunters, do this. They went from finding some mediocre sheds, nothing crazy, to in 1 year go back. They planted 5 acres of standing beans. They still had their green plots around there, and they were where they needed to be. But just in that bean field and around it, in the bedding around it, 36 sheds, 3 matching sets in the bean field, not in bedding areas, right there, a 4.5+ year old deer for the next year, and they killed 2 5.5-year-old deer that year. That were the biggest deer shot the property that I knew of. So
putting in like a winter food source.
Yep.
Something to hold the deer through into that part of the season, let's say from November on.
Yep.
Because everybody thinks about the greens, and those are easy to establish, and they really are useful, but they kind of are less attractive once you get into that first frost.
Yep, that's right.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. So having a winter or fall winter type of, and those are generally grains, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge believer in beans and corn.
Yeah.
You can do all this other stuff, but I mean, that's just like, that's a staple. That's pretty easy. Go out there, and if you already have tillable ground, you might be able to work a deal with your tillable tenant and have them come in, and there's a give and take there again. But there's some things there that you can do, but I would say hands down, that's just something that can really hold them through. When you're on vacation and they're enjoying the property, is that time of the year, November on, when they're hitting that later grain, and then shed season, you're going back and establishing history, and you're pulling deer off the neighbors a lot of times too, which is a added benefit. And you just made room for them when you shot them 2 5.5-year-olds. So
you made room for your neighbors to have more big ones.
Yeah, that's right.
No,
yep.
I'm kidding. But no, you're gonna do your part of it too. I mean, it's not like you're not feeding deer, you're not bedding deer. I mean, you're doing your part.
Yep.
Of making the whole neighborhood better. As long as you're not shooting really young, beautiful, up and coming, genetically superior deer, you're not hurting anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
you're bringing the holding capacity up that much more for the whole neighborhood to really benefit.
Yeah. So now let's look at, okay, that's number one. What's number two then?
I would say probably water. It's a really easy thing to go in and add. One of my favorite things on a couple of my properties where I'm limited to what I can do. I can't go in with a dozer and go put in this huge water hole on a ridge top. Like, I mean, I'd love to do, but I got 2 kiddie pools in 2 of my best rut spots. And I was at a showing 2 years ago on a beautiful property. Get back in my truck after the showing, and it's November 1st. There's a big 12-point standing right in the middle of the kiddie pool, sitting there drinking. 10 o'clock in the morning, just got done running the ridge line. Like, I mean, absolute staple.
So let's talk about this kiddie pool. So this is literally a kiddie pool, like you went to Menards or whatever. And
Ace Hardware, $5. The one I got garage. A little blue one with rubber duckies in it.
You can't be in a tree stand looking down at that.
Yeah, it's a little comical, especially when they're standing in it running around. But I don't know. You can't beat it. It can be that simple.
So do you dig them into the ground then?
Yeah, well, sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you just set them out there.
But yeah,
oh my gosh.
I like to dig them in though. I think it holds water.
That is so funny.
Yeah. It works really good. The water holes, just in general, having water, having a trout stream. Trout stream's an added benefit already there, but you're not really adding it. But something to look for in your bind. But going back to water holes, I mean, I don't think there's anything better than to hunting a ridge top. It's mid-morning, early afternoon, and they're sick of running. They're sweating. They're coming up panting and hitting that water. And it's something that can be so easy to go add for $5 and a little bit of digging a hole. You can have an established deal, and you can put them at 30 yards broadside sometimes.
Yeah, that's funny. So I always thought about putting like, they have those rubber whatever you call them, pond liners, you know.
Yeah.
So if you're like too proud to buy a kiddie pool, like maybe I would be, I'm not so sure I'd go buy that kiddie pool,
Yeah.
but I could buy some of that neoprene or rubber pond liner and dig a hole, put that in, and
absolutely
same thing.
Yeah, it looks a lot more natural and probably a little bit prettier to look at when the sun's coming up. But yeah, either way, just having that water
Yeah.
there, it's a huge deal. And you're just trying to keep deer on the property as much as you can. Unless you own thousands of acres, they're never always going to be there, but it's about getting them there as much as possible while you're there. So
okay, so number 3 then. What's your number 3? Cover? Habitat?
Yep.
What do you do? Like I know that farms that I've owned, I just get really heavy duty into the habitat side of it. So what kind of stuff have you learned makes the property more attractive, or you know, maybe the holding capacity, so to speak, or even the ability to hunt it bigger, you know? Like,
yeah.
I've been on farms that were wide open, and gosh, I mean, this is pretty thick around here, but let's just say you step out into an open timber and you own 40 acres, and if every deer on the 40 acres can see you,
Yeah.
when you get out of your truck,
Yeah,
you're kind of toast.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, you're already beat before you even got out. So I think the biggest thing is, and first off, thinking again with a map, strategically putting it off of food, where you want the deer to be as best as you can keep them there with that bedding area. Wisconsin has a really good program in MFL. If you're into that, it's not for everybody, but it's a huge tax incentive, and they're going in there with a plan that you can kind of help draw up with them, and there'll be pockets of timber for Wisconsin specific where again you can manipulate in other states, but you have the tax break, and they're going in there and they're doing selective cuts or clear cuts on a small scale. So all of a sudden, one of my favorite farms I've ever hunted, it's like playing connect the dots with these little MFL cuts, and it's incredible. The trails either scent checking right above them, which is where my favorite tree stand is, or the trail is just connecting those MFL cuts, and they're just this thick, nasty jungle that I don't think you could ever get in there and walk through them. But as far as deer bedding, it is phenomenal. But having that and having it strategic, so you can get in with the wind, or you can get them deer to where they can't see you coming in. That bedding cover is huge. We're working on a 20-acre listing that's pending right now. The guy's going to go in there, southeast face slope, and it's only a 20, so you can only hunt it so much. Food plot on the north side, food plot on the south side, road coming in on the east. Well, any west wind, he can come in with the north access, and he's going to cut out a couple acres of timber here, and then he'll be able to scoot right around them deer without being seen, and then he can hunt it more effectively because of that.
Interesting. So how do you apply for that? Like, I mean, I know what we do in Iowa, and I can talk about that a little bit, but like, let's just take Wisconsin, for example, as maybe a typical state, or at least a process that maybe is typical of other states. How do you get from saying, oh, I want to do this, to actually doing it? I mean, who do you call? How do you get that started?
You're just going to call your county forester. They're going to drop the plan, come out on the farm with you, and there's going to be a plan on what you can do with the timber, what you can't. They're going to put a plan in 5 years we're going to cut this block, in 10 years we're going to cut this block, whatever that might be. Everyone's different, and it's how it's going to fit. And in 10 years, that cut might not be needed. So we're dealing with a farm this summer that they had a couple of scheduled cuts on 2 different farms that they didn't need to be cut. There wasn't a marketable timber there, but you can still go in and you can work with them and kind of adjust according to time, because there's no perfect deal. But going to your county forester is a good first step, and they're going to be able to come out and get that going for you.
And that's kind of what it is in Iowa too. We have what's called district foresters, which they have a bigger area, because Iowa obviously doesn't have as much timber as Wisconsin, you know, so we don't need as many foresters. But I mean, there's a couple of counties in Iowa where a forester wouldn't have anything to do unless he's in somebody's backyard, you know, pruning a pine tree. But I mean, there's some counties where there's no trees. But let's just say that, you know, in Iowa, it's the district forester. So most states, there's probably some type of a forestry system set up. So that would be the first point of contact. And also, you get a lot of expertise there, because you could screw up a farm too if you do it wrong.
Absolutely.
You know, if you get too crazy and you cut down the wrong stuff. And it took 80 years, you know, to grow that tree, and now you're going to whack that tree. And you don't have a real reason for it. You probably don't want to do that.
And you don't want to go clear cut them either, because otherwise all the non-marketable timber is going to come back. So keeping seed trees and stuff like that is still good. You're going to have an added food bonus there, but you still want to have that undergrowth and have that established for your entrance, exit, all of that fun stuff. And you can control it better if it's just you and you don't want the tax break from MFL. But if you're trying to afford a bigger piece and the tax is a different option, I mean, I think
it's the government programs are really good, you know, and I've used them a lot over the years on stuff that I've owned, and it really comes down to the individual forester. You know, some of those guys are kind of more wildlife focused than others. So you might have a forester in your area that's really understands this wildlife side of it. And some of them might say, I don't care about deer, all I want is timber value.
Yeah.
You know, so they're probably not going to cut maybe quite as aggressively or recommend as aggressively.
Yeah.
Because they're going to want to release this tree, that tree. They don't want to release bigger areas.
Yep.
Because that's not necessarily a forestry goal.
Yeah.
That's more of a wildlife goal.
Yep.
But either way, you're getting something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the government's helping you with expertise and with, you know, cost share money or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, so there's a huge tax break there that's going to help you afford more property. It's also going to hold your holding capacity there and your huntability of the property. So there's a lot of benefits there in adding to the property. And it again just goes back to planning and planning ahead and all of that. And that's something we can have a conversation with and what your goal is. But that's a huge deal there.
Yeah. So now those are the 3 steps or the 3 most important actions to take if you bought a property that you're going to keep. And maybe it's not a whole lot different than if you're buying it as an investment. Would you say that, like, let's just say that I'm not a deer hunter.
Yeah.
But now I'm starting to say, hey, this whole recreational land craze, this gets, you know, it kind of gets in my blood. I like this, you know. I can make some money on this stuff.
Yeah.
So now I'm that guy. And I want to come into my new 40 or my new 80 or whatever it is and say, I want to make this so that it's more marketable. Maybe I can cash flow it, you know, heaven forbid, or I can actually, you know, raise the property value quickly and then resell it and keep, you know, playing this game.
Yep.
I mean, the game isn't going to be there forever. I mean, let's just face it. I mean, at some point, this crazy escalation is going to go away, and people who aren't really hardcore end users aren't going to be playing the game anymore.
Yep.
But for the sake of the current world that we're in, when land is going up that quick, it's going to attract money of people who aren't end users.
Yeah.
So let's say you're not an end user. I mean, you're just an investor. You're like, hey, I'm going to own this for a while and sell it. What are the first 3 steps for that guy? Is it any different?
So I would say pretty much combine them all into one. I still think that if there's turnkey, there's something to be said about it. When you can come in, you can market it as this turnkey property and everything's already done, it's been polished, and there's absentee landowners or investors that's just going to make it easier. They don't have the weekend warrior type mentality or the time to be able to come down and do those things, and they just want to have it ready to rock and roll for them.
So you want to work out all of the risk, take out all the work. Now we know who the tenant is for the farming. We got all this stuff here. Just come and it's yours. Come and hunt it.
Yep.
So then how do you prove out that property? I mean, because I know that there's a lot of people out there that say, this is the greatest deer hunting in the whole world. I mean, every single listing is, this is an awesome neighborhood, or this is whatever. How do you prove that out to the next guy?
Yeah. So, I mean, I call it number 2, but I think it's number 1 in what I preach. Every time I sell something, even if I tell them, even if it's going to be your dream property, it's going to be in the family for the next couple generations, go buy a $50 trail camera, $100 trail camera. It's the best money that you can spend, because I can show you the properties that have deer pictures and the trail cam pics or whatever that is. Some people have handy cams on the tree stand with them. Those farms sell in days. And the ones that don't, it takes a little bit more homework to make sure, okay, it is justified and it is what you're saying. Otherwise, there's a big question mark there. So that trail cam over a scrape in October is going to get you plenty of pictures to really justify everything that you need there to prove the property.
Because the guy that's going to pay the most for it is the guy who's buying it as his dream farm, or he's the end user.
Yeah.
Because the investor's not going to pay top dollar.
Nope.
He's going to be looking for someplace that, you know, lower down to get in.
He wants to make it that.
Right.
Yep.
So if you're going to sell it for top dollar, you've got to prove it out.
Yep.
So that way, you know, if you think in those terms, and granted, if you're a really serious deer hunter, you're going to be able to prove it out easily enough, right? Because you're going to do all that stuff anyway.
Yeah, and the 3 steps there, there's going to naturally make it that much better and hold more deer and all of that. So it's just going to make the trail cam pics that much better.
So the trail cam pics are really the key to it, because then you can prove that the neighborhood is good.
That's the deal.
Because otherwise, it's like everybody says, oh, it's a great neighborhood. And you're like, is it really a great neighborhood? Well, look at these pictures. Oh, it is a great neighborhood.
There's some farms that look so perfect from a map, and it's like, this is a dream property, and there's a 140 running around, and that's it. And that might be a good deer, but when your expectations are 170.
It might be the farm that I bought.
Yeah.
You know, because when I bought that from Jacob or through Jacob, there were no trail cam pictures.
Yeah.
You know, and I called, you know, people who I knew and said, how good is this area? And they're like, I don't really know. You know, I'm like, you know, but, you know, it's Iowa, and, you know, even if it's, you know, average, it's still pretty good, you know. So you know, it's just, but if somebody would have had a history of showing me trail camera pictures and said, this is a great neighborhood, I'd have been maybe paid more.
Yeah.
You know, but I surely would have moved quicker.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that uncertainty of like, is this really a good deer hunting area? Everybody says that it is, you know, but is it really, you know? That's so key.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to realize the most when you go to resell it.
Yep. Yeah, and you're trying to get the property's high point, but that peace of mind there and just justifying it and backing up what you're saying, it adds a lot of value really quick. And for a pretty small amount of money going into it, I mean, a $100 trail cam can go a long ways.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, that's good advice. We're going to keep doing these.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've had a lot of fun picking your brain, Lucas, and you know, we'll keep doing it. But yeah, I'll let you close it out.
Yeah. Thanks for checking back in. Like and subscribe to the channel. We'll keep coming back with more videos.